there's this resource page here that I provided. If you go to that page, there is something, some links here for practice exercises. We have practice exercise 1, which is the Word document. So I'll go ahead and open that. All right, so this is an example of a document in Word that has the major issues with accessibility. When I first get a Word document and I start working on it, remember I mentioned you probably want to start with the checker. So the way to get to the checker is by going to Review on the ribbon tab, and there is something called Check Accessibility. So once you click on that, this right panel here opens up in your accessibility checker, and it's giving you all the issues, all the errors and warnings it's identified. So if I expand these, it's giving me all the issues. If I start clicking on them, it kind of highlights the issues on the document. Right. So what I'll do is I'll make these, it's missing alt text, so I'll give this one an alt text. So what I'll do is right click on the image, and there's something called edit alt text. Now, what's really important is the version I'm using today is the 365 version. That's probably the best version so far of the Word that's really enhances a lot of the accessibility features. So if you do have the 365, that's going to be a great way, a great tool to use the all your accessibility features on Word. So I'll click on Edit Alt Text, and it opens up another panel here for the alt text. Most of the time when you're adding alt text, you don't want to insert a picture of, logo of. That's really repetitive for screen readers. Also, depending on the logo or the picture, for example, our logo says TEA. If I start typing TEA, I might know what it is, but when a screen reader gets to it, it's going to read it as T. So when it comes to these kind of logos with acronyms or abbreviations, you want to just use the whole name of the image. And that's all I have to do now. And notice now that the that issue under alternate text went away. So that's fixed. But now there's something else here for this border. Like I said, if you have something that's a visual representation on your document, but it's not really conveying any information, you can just mark it decorative. So I'll select it and just click the mark as decorative option. Again, this is only going to be found on the 365 version of Word. So like I mentioned, the 365, has a lot of advanced accessibility features that make it easy for authors to use and make accessible. So I mark that decorative, and that's all I have to do. I notice up here, this is my title, which is okay. However, a lot of times people forget to add this title to the properties of the document. So what I do is I select it and copy it, my whole title. Then I go to File, and under Info, there's this page, and it has a section for properties, and in them there's one for title. and it's blank right now. So I'll click in there and paste it. And my title's in there now. So like I mentioned, this is helping the screen readers know the name of the title of the document before they even open it. You know, if it's a large document, it might take them a few seconds before they open the document and see this is probably the wrong document I need to get to. Adding the title to the properties is going to really help screen readers find that information quicker than and not opening the documents. So I'll put that in there. Now, the other thing now is this heading. That's my title, which is okay. However, when I come to my home ribbon, I notice under styles, it's just normal text, which this is a title and it's bolder and bigger, so we know it's a title, but it's only representative for a visual person to know if this is a title. Screen readers are not going to know that, even though it gets to it first. So we got to make sure this is a title. The proper heading to use is a heading 1. You might also find title on as a style. You don't want to use title. It's not going to do the proper heading tag. You want to keep it to heading 1. And I'll select that. Now I notice that when I hover over it and I select it, it's kind of changing my format. If you're okay with that, you can just click on it and leave it the way it is. If you want to keep this format, which is a little bit text size is a little bit bigger, you know, and maybe if I want to give it a blue color, if I just select heading 1, it's going to remove all my formatting. So what I want to do is I'll just select the title on the document, hover over heading 1, right click on it, and click on the first option, which is update heading 1. So when I do that, it kept my format and now it's a heading 1. Now another thing to notice is if you have your navigation pane open on the side, you can see that the heading 1 now is under this section here. Now, if I go to my next section, it looks like this is another section here. I can make that a heading 2. Same process where I just select the text and I'll hover over 2, right click on it, update, and now it's a heading 2. So what we're doing now, we're adding this structure to the document. So screen readers are able to know, hey, this is my heading 1. This is the next section, which is the heading 2, and so on. So it's a heading 2. If I click here, it's a heading 2, and notice that the heading 2 now is underneath the heading 1 on the navigation pane. If I click anywhere else, everything else changes to normal. This is a heading 1, and then this is a heading 2. So we're giving it that structure that the screen readers need to navigate documents. Now, if you're using, you know, if it's a one-page document, it's not really critical if you're using the heading 1s, 2s, and 3s. But at least always try to give it a heading 1 to your title. Now, if you're working with a document that's 50 pages long, you're putting some kind of report together, those headings are going to be really useful. This is another one we can say it's a section. So I already made this a heading 2, and it updated the styles, the formatting in the style. So if I click on that now, it's going to keep the same format now, and it's a heading 2. So keep the same formatting of this one. This is another way to keep your document consistent with, you know, the font formats and sizes. So it puts it over here now. The other nice thing about working with headings and applying headings is if I change my mind and I want courses uh, before the reimbursement, I can just select it from here from the navigation pane and just move it up, and it changes all my document around. So it's a nice feature too for authors. I'll put that back. The next thing I noticed is there's links on this document. So we need to make sure our links are descriptive. So if all the content went away and I only had a list of all my links, somehow I would know that it's a link that goes to this page or it's for this information. So right here, tech section 28.053. It's not really useful. So, sometimes you might want to just, instead of just tech, you might want to just write out what it is, like Texas education code. And sometimes you can't really do nothing about the link, like the section and 28. That's all part of the the statute. So you probably have to leave that stuff in there. But what you can do is you can select your link. I'll select it. I'll do a right click. I'll do edit hyperlink. And there's a screen tip at the top right. So there's a screen tip. When I click on that button, it opens up another window, and I'm able to write more descriptive information. Section 28.053. And then I'll hit OK. And that window goes away, and I can hit OK here. It doesn't really change anything on the actual document, but if I hover over the link now, a little tooltip now says Texas Education Code Section 508. This is optional. Sometimes if a screen reader comes to this link, they'll read the link text, and then it might also follow up with the screen tip you added, depending on the screen reader's settings. So, a user might have it configured where it wants to read that additional information as well. So it's a nice option to put in these document links that might be a little more difficult to make descriptive. But sometimes you'll see links that are like this, like here. And like I mentioned, sometimes you want to just reformat the sentence a little bit better so it makes sense when it's read, and also if the link is read outside the context of the sentence, right? So for here, what I can do, or what you can do is you can, instead of making here the link, you can make this the link. You can put your link address in there by pasting it. There's some things here. So I can put my link in there. Let's say that's it. I'll hit OK. That makes a link, and you want to just remove this here. So now it reads 2019 teacher training reimbursement. Applications must be submitted through Qualtrics, a secure survey application system. So we reworded the sentence a bit just so it makes sense when you're using a link to use a phrase rather than a word. So just keep that in mind. Also, when you're linking and putting web addresses like this, um, for the most part, it's okay, especially if you know your document is going to be printed or some kind of a document flyer that you know you want to really show the URL of your website. You can put something like this in there. That's okay. Just make sure, I think what help better is if you do the same thing of adding the screen tip. So when the screen reader reads it, it's going to read the whole URL. And then at the end, it's going to say, you know, Texas Education Agency homepage or whatever you put in the screen tip. So now if I hover over, I can see Texas Education Agency on the tooltip. The next thing I see here is this table, and it's one of the issues that's still on my accessibility checker. So to make tables accessible, make sure you're not using them for layout. You're using them for a data set like it is here. But at the same time, you also need to apply a table header to the table. The table header is basically the table header is where screen readers can relate to what the information or data is on the table. So in this case, if they're reading AP biology, they can say that's part of the course. If it reads AP BIO, that's the course abbreviation. So that's how screen readers know that data in that cell is related to what kind of information. So in Word, what you want to do is you select the table. When you do that, it gives you two extra tabs at the top. It's going to give you a tab, a table design, and a layout. Now, if you go back to the design, it's going to give you this option here, which is table style. Now, my headers are at the top, so that's going to be a header row. So now it knows all that information relates to these top row here. You can also make it the first column. That way, if the screen reader gets to this section here, it knows this code is related to this course, and that's how it makes its relationship. So always use table headers. That makes your tables accessible. The other thing too is even if your table doesn't expand to a second page, you want to keep that header continuing on to the next pages. So in this case, that table does expand to a second page, but we want to keep the same headers. So it's easier for even sighted people to know, hey, what does this mean? It's a course, right? So what we do is you click anywhere on your table header, then you go to your layout at the top. When you click on that, you have a lot of options, but what you're looking for is this option here called repeat header rows. And this is only going to appear if you click on the header. If I click somewhere else, it's going to be grayed out. So you got to make sure you're clicking on the header. And then I'll click on that and they appear on my second page. If this table expands 3 or 4 pages, it's always going to be on that at the top of each page. And notice that my heading issue over here, table header issue on the checker went away. So now I'm left with color or hard to read text contrast. If I click on it, it takes me to the table headers, the header, that header, that header, and then it takes me to the red text. Sometimes it's not going to make that differentiate for you, so you still want to give it a manual check. And if you have the color contrast analyzer tool, you can want to check your backgrounds and your foregrounds. In this case, it is recognizing some issues with your color. And as it is, I can tell that the white text with the blue is really hard to see. So what I want to do is either make my background darker or make my text darker, and I'll make the text black. So it's easier now to read, and notice that all the issues on that header for the color went away. However, I still have issues here. So you want to make that, like I said, if you are going to be using red, you want to use a dark red. So I'll use a really dark red, and that passes. At the same time, this is a legend here. So now we fixed the color contrast issue, but you're still using color as a way to convey information. You're right here. So there's nothing besides color that you know that this course is not available. Only a sighted person with no colorblind issues can make that distinction. So what you want to do is you can add like an asterisk or some kind of shape on there, and you can apply that to here. And you can also apply that to here if you like. So now when a screen reader comes, it's going to read that, and it's going to know that this asterisk means unavailable courses, and when it gets here, it's going to read the asterisk, and it's going to know, hey, this course is not available. So on your table now, you have headers, and you have the red represented correctly, where it has some kind of representation, not based just on color. And once I make my all my enhancements, all my accessibility enhancements to this document, if I look at it now, it's going to be the same way I started off with. So adding all the accessibility to this document did not change the format of my actual document. You know, we might have just rewrote a sentence and added minor things, but overall the layout, the format stayed the same. So whenever you're working with documents, you know, you don't have to think if you're going to make it accessible, it's going to really change it and change your format, make it boring. You know, you can still add your graphs. You can still add your information.